Hello, guys, and welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. As always, I've got Ray with me. How you doing, Ray?
I'm belted, mate. I'm absolutely great. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm not bad, mate. I'm not bad. I'm loving your new surroundings, and
Oh, man, to
I
be fair.
am. They're not bad, no. I am looking forward to this video. We did say it on our live. We've got some slightly different style of videos for you. And this morning, every boxing fan has asked the question at some point. If I was a promoter, what would my stable be? So today we're going to be picking our own stables. The rules are very simple. We're going to do it in a draft style. We've got a prospect, a pay-per-view star, a female fighter, and then someone who's on the comeback trail or possibly needs a little bit of a rebuild, but what would be a project for a promoter. So we don't know each other's lists. So let's get straight into it. Ray, we'll start with prospect, as they'd probably be first up on the card, so to speak. I'm going to let you have first pick on this one. So give me your prospect and why.
Scary. I'm going to go with Joran Boots Ennis, over in the States at welterweight. I firmly believe this kid's got the potential to be not just the best welterweight on the planet, but the best in multiple weights. One, because of his size, physical size. Two, because of his ability. This kid can put you to sleep with either hand. He knows every punch in the book. He's just as effective on the inside as he is on the outside, on the back foot as he is on the front foot. His defense is superb. It really is. He can block punches. He can parry punches. He can ride punches. He uses his feet to get out of range. Everybody knows I like that rather than just relying on that Roy Jones type of lean back to get out of the way. Because eventually those type of reflexes do deteriorate a lot quicker. But I also like his personality as well. He's not arrogant with it, which you see a lot, particularly stateside. These young pups that they have coming through, these young lions, they tend to have that arrogance. Because he's so quiet, he will be a difficult job to promote. And I wouldn't usually go for a quiet type fighter to promote because they don't talk. I think it's a fine balance between being able to sell yourself and being arrogant. But this kid, his ability speaks for itself. So that's why I'm going for Joran Boots Ennis.
No, fair play. I can't argue with that one. I can't lie. I thought you'd be going with a different American heavyweight.
Yeah.
But no, I knew you're a big fan of Boots Ennis, so I can't argue with that one, to be fair to you. I'm going to go with Adam Azim. Obviously, it's a British feel, but I'm just thinking, he's 20 years old. He's 5-0 now, 4 stoppages, and already, I'm just thinking social media, some highlight reel stoppages on there, regardless of who they're against. And I'm just thinking, around lightweight, super lightweight, wherever he's going to sort of settle and campaign for a while, both those divisions have got the potential to become quite fragmented in the next sort of year to 18 months with the belt situations. So I just think, you promoters talk about, getting somebody up the world rankings or possibly even to a title shot without really having to test them. So I'm purely thinking of the money here, although he has got the talent as well, to be fair to Azim. But I think he would be my pick. And I'll be honest, I've gone one step further on this one. I even thought of well, where would you start? So I've done a little 3-fight plan that I'll just buzz you through quite quickly. Oh, you can smile, Ray, but in my head, this is Josh Langford promotion.
I'm moving my hands with delight.
But there we go. We start on Monday, mate.
I'm hoping Sky is watching this.
Well, I think there might have been, to be fair, because the first fight I've got is Ryland Charlton. Obviously, it's been talked about a lot. We spoke about it after Azim's last fight. I just think Charlton, he brings a good level of name value. He's an exciting fighter to watch. And also he's got that power. So he would definitely be Azim's biggest test yet. However, I think I'd be backing Azim to come through it, to be totally honest. As much as I am a fan of Ryland, we've had him on the channel before. I just think Azim, we've said it on here, I think he's got the real potential to be the future of certainly British boxing, but he's going to be a talent. So I would be picking Azim. And then the second fight, obviously Tom Farrell and Harlem Eubank, they fight on July the 30th next weekend. I'd be going for the winner of that, as long as he came through Charlton with style. I just think, it's a step up again. Because I think, and I've got this on as somebody else on my list as well, depending on where we get to with this draft style. But I think with a talent like Azim, it's tough because you've got to strike the balance between keeping them busy and active and challenged, but also you can't rush them too much too soon. I think that would be the toughest thing for me about promoting Adam Azim. But I'd go for the winner of Farrell and Harlem Eubank. If they came through that, then I'm thinking you need a seasoned veteran, certainly at domestic level. I know we spoke on this channel before about those sort of step ups. So, I'm thinking someone like a Sam Maxwell, 33 years old, experienced campaigner. And then if you came through all them, he'd potentially be 8-0. Who knows how many stoppages. But where would you? It'd be tough from then on because you'd be looking at 8-0 who's done a real good job at domestic level, but it's potentially a little bit too soon. I'm a fan of your 10-fight rule, Ray, and he wouldn't quite be there. But that's what I'm going. I'm going prospect Adam Azim. Any arguments?
No, I mean the fight with Ryland Charlton being an interesting fight because Ryland Charlton's got a good winning record as well, experienced campaigner, and Ryan's coming in at a fight with his reputation to lose, so that's what makes that fight a dangerous fight. The likes of Sam Maxwell and those type of fights, you'll be stepping up in weight against those guys. So that'll be interesting to see how he carries the extra £5 difference. But the likes of Sam Maxwell, I mean, he's only lost at European level, so that would be again a real tough fight for him. And if he can come through the likes of people like Sam Maxwell, there's other people at lightweight he could be up against. I know, you got still people around his level like Dylan Chima, who won the Boxer tournament. There's some good mates domestically at lightweight. So if you can come through those, however many fights it takes, I think the important thing to recognise with Adam Azim is he's only 20.
This is the thing.
20, so it's he's really exciting. Plus, you can tap into the audience that followed Amir Khan because of similar backgrounds. So really, I can see Adam Azim being onto a winner, and I really do rate him highly.
No, I'm glad. Right, so we're one down with no arguments, guys. Let us know in the comments what your picks would be for these as well, because this should start some interesting debate. We'll go women next, and we'll alternate. So I'll go first pick. I'm going Katie Taylor purely because now I was really torn here, and I will, after you've done yours, I will say who my second pick was because I was torn between longevity and selling tickets now. After my prospect with Azim, I thought, right, we need a main event, we need a headline act, Katie Taylor. We all know her history, undisputed lightweight champion. We know what she brings. I think before the Serrano fight, I was guilty of it as well. I think a lot of people were saying that maybe the skills are on the decline a little bit. She'd not looked as good in recent fights. I know there were mandatory defenses, so they are harder to be up for. But, either way, with that Serrano win, it was an incredible fight. And I think her name's probably at an all-time high. Her next fight will be a big one in terms of seeing what she really has got left. But I've gone Katie Taylor purely because the resume is there, Serrano, Jonas, Persoon, whatever you think of the results. And I think, you've got Ireland, UK, America. So as a promoter, you can go pretty much all around the world and you've got a headline act. So she's my female. Ray, what are your thoughts on that?
I've got exactly Katie Taylor. I was stuck between Katie Taylor and Savannah Marshall simply because for what Savannah Marshall lacks in skill, she makes up for in power. And people, even though it's not my style, people love a puncher. And a knockout artist is always a good sell. But the reason why I went for Katie Taylor, you just given all the reasons. But the big reason for me was she's a massive draw in the States. She's a massive draw in England, and she's a massive draw in Ireland. So she's already got that transnational appeal, as well as her achievements being undisputed. What people don't realise about Katie Taylor, similar to Clarissa Shields, is the sign of a great champion, a great is in an all-time great, is looking on a resume to see their achievements of those fighters that they defeated. I'll give you an example. So she beat Jessica McCaskill earlier on. in Katie Taylor's career. McCaskill's then become undisputed at the weight above. She's beaten Natasha Jonas. Natasha Jonas has become a world champion in her own right, albeit it's at super welterweight. She beat, she beat Orbanoff, who, didn't go on to do anything at world level, but still beat Natasha Jonas. In fact, she stopped Natasha Jonas. Those 2 wins against Bassoon. The first one, I had Bassoon winning. The second one, Katie Taylor won. And it was still a difficult fight. If somebody come on here and gave an argument for Bassoon winning the second fight, I wouldn't be arguing and disagreeing and turning my nose at them, because it would be a very good argument. So you got to look at the resume in Katie Taylor, and for me, that's what makes her great and impressive. And she's a lovely person as well, down to earth. She's not the best talker in the world, but again, her skills are so great. It's more than compensates for that. So I would have to agree with you on that one. I didn't think we would agree on one, but yeah.
No, I'm pleasantly surprised there. I mean, as you say about she's not the greatest talker, that's our job now, mate. From Monday, we See, I'm going to be honest. I did do a second pick for this, and Caroline Dubois was my pick. And this is what I was saying about with Azim. I was torn between right now and longevity. Caroline Dubois, similar to Azim, she's only 21, young to the pro game, but the amateur background's there. And from what we've seen so far of her, although it's not a lot, I think she's really got where I think, at 36, Katie Taylor will inevitably be retiring sooner rather than later. I really think, with what Katie Taylor's done for women's boxing, so to speak, I think Caroline Dubois can pick up the baton and take it to that next level again. So I was torn between the two, but because I've gone Azim at prospect, I thought, you can't ignore what Katie Taylor's done and doing, to be fair.
Yeah.
We'll move on. So we'll go to a rebuild or comeback fighter. So, I mean, the rules for this one, I suppose, are a little bit vaguer because depending on what you define as a comeback star, obviously it changes what you're going to look for. So we'll give you first pick on this one, Ray. Who are you going for?
I've gone for Deontay Wilder. He's on the comeback. Now he's wanting to box again. And for me, he's a standout candidate. He's got knockout power. He's getting a big following now in the States, particularly with the Afro-American market. I think with Deontay Wilder, if he was promoted properly in his career, he could have had those defining fights earlier on. And because of his devastating power, which although his ability you would never hear Deontay Wilder be mentioned in the top 20 heavyweights of all time in terms of ability. But for me, if you're just ranking him in terms of power, he's in the top 5. He's definitely in the top 10. There's an argument to put him in the top 5. I'm going to go back on what I said. You're going to look at the caliber of his opponents, but it's the way he's handling them. I mean, in some of the Fury fights, Fury at some of those points looked out, and then Fury's a special fighter, and he came back. So for me, Deontay Wilder would be who I would like to have on the comeback. If you could give him the right fights, you could have him a real big star over here, and you can get him in some mouthwatering heavyweight fights.
Now, see, I'm torn because I agree with a lot of things that you said, but I want Wilder in with better opposition now to truly see how good his power is, because we're saying Fury's a special fighter, and I definitely agree with that. But until we've seen Wilder in with some equally, world-class opposition, because we've only really, other than Fury, he's been in with really Ortiz, who we can say is definitely of that level. Is his power everything we think of? Because as you say, the key thing, and I can never get past it with Wilder, is the fact that the opposition's not really there for him. So, go on.
This is the thing, though. If you, instead of having them those close ties with Shinkel and stuff like that we're looking to promote him, there are a lot of heavyweights out there you can put him in with who have been far better than whoever he's faced.
Definitely.
For example, Parker, Joe Joyce, Andy Ruiz. I don't think those fights will be all that difficult to make, and I'm assuming as part of this, we would have a bit of money behind us. So it shouldn't be too difficult to put him in with those guys, particularly now. and what I mean by comeback trailers, I'm not thinking about putting them in 10 rounders against people like Adam Sanowski or the Polish guy or Chris Ariola. I'm not on about rebuilding him that way. I'm on about rebuilding him as in getting him back to being a world champion, being back to being on the first name on everyone's lips, and heavyweight as a contender for the titles held by Usyk and Fury. In order to do that, he doesn't need to go back 10 rounders now at this stage of his career. He just needs to go back to fighting names that are going to give him those rankings. So he's the first one not going to do in the mandatory position.
No, definitely. I mean, just one quick question for you. Who's his comeback fight? Bearing in mind, obviously, he's had a stretch out the ring. He hasn't been that active the last few years, in fairness. Else. So who would be the first name? You can pick anybody. Who's he fighting for?
I mean, Andy Ruiz is tied up. For me, it's either Joe Joyce or Parker, because I think they give him that televised platform that'll help, particularly over in the UK. The names that aren't particularly anywhere else, they're ready and available. So those are the guys that I'll be going in against. The guys that are ready made for his style, particularly Joe Joyce. And a knockout against them would go some way. So
would you not be tempted to give him a confidence builder first?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think he needs one.
You just go straight in.
He's got a very different mindset than the likes of Anthony Joshua. He's a bit like when they talk about warriors, Deontay Wilder is one. The likes of Amir Khan, Carl Froch. When they've had bad knockout defeats in the past, they've jumped straight back in. Khan had a few gimme fights, but he never went in there with Canelo after being badly knocked out at lightweight and at 140, and then he went in there against a much bigger Kell Brook. Deontay Wilder's a similar mentality. He's been badly beaten by Tyson Fury. You could argue 3 times. I don't think it would faze him going in with somebody like a Joe Joyce or Parker as a next fight. I think if anything, that would motivate him. I worry about some fighters going in after a long layoff against somebody they're expected to walk over. They can look sluggish because it's hard to get up for somebody that they knew when they were at their most active. This guy wouldn't even tie their shoelaces. So I think you need somebody who's going to make him run harder in those runs and get those extra bit of work out in the gym, and Joe Joyce would do something like that for me.
Fair play. Now, again, I've gone a slightly different feel here, and I'm a little bit worried. I'm possibly regretting my choice. I'm thinking I might get a little bit of hate off yourself, and who knows, maybe in the comment section. I'm going Callum Smith. Now, this might seem a little bit of a bizarre choice because he's actually done a lot in his career already.
Yeah.
But I can't help but go back to, September 2018 when he beat George Groves. He'd won the Muhammad Ali trophy, Ring Magazine at super middleweight. And I just feel like he was built well until then. Not as active at times as we'd have possibly liked, but with the tournament style, we know delays happen and sort of you can end up with layoffs. And he had some pullouts, didn't he, along the way in that tournament. But I just feel like after he beat Groves, and people will probably say, Groves was finished and all the rest of it. And maybe he was, but regardless, Groves was considered by most at that point as the number 1 super middleweight. And let's be fair, Callum Smith did a job on him, stopped him in, handy fashion. And I just feel like at that point, he had the boxing world at his feet and really should have kicked on to unifications I know he got the Canelo fight and we know how that went, but I just feel like after that, we had him 9 months out the ring. Then he fought Hassan and Dam on the Joshua Ruiz 1 undercard, which was, I know you have a world title defense. I get that. And if it had been in Liverpool, I'd be a little bit more forgiving as a homecoming title defense. But I just thought that was slightly disappointing. I just feel like he's been too inactive and he's no longer the name on your lips, is he, as a British talent? I'd like to bet if you listed off, if you asked 20 people, name your top 5 Brits, I don't even know if he'd be in there for a lot of people. And I think with his talent, he's an easy to promote guy, isn't he? Because he headlines in Liverpool, whoever he fights pretty much. With the right fight, you'd do Anfield. and probably sell it out. The family history's there. Obviously, they're one of the most famous families in British boxing, certainly. And I just feel like 32 now, he's got a potential where he's in light heavyweight after that serious knockout win over Castillo. You know, he's got the Borderlick, WBC, potentially final eliminator. Matchroom have won the purse bids for that. So you've got that route. Obviously, there's the talk of Bivol if Bivol Buatsi can't be made.
Yeah.
And if I was him, I'd be sat now quite annoyed, you know, with Matchroom. Like, hang on a minute. Fair play, you've backed me and won the purse bid for me to fight Borderlick, but why is Buatsi getting the Bivol fight before I am? Do you know, like, go on.
It's a lot of that, not just down to how Joe Gallagher was. Because I can imagine Callum Smith being offered a lot of fights and Joe Gallagher perhaps giving his opinion. Because I'm just getting the vibes from that gym. A lot of big names have left him. And there has been a lot of... I mean, Natasha Jonas, we know, was offered some big fights and she didn't get them, any kind of thing. Hang on, it's just a bit too much of a coincidence for me. And I know a lot of the Smith family, they've kind of all left Joe now. I'm just wondering whether or not that was more of a Joe Gallagher issue than a promotional issue. I want to get your thoughts on that.
No, I think it probably is. I mean, I've got to be honest, we'll never know the full story, will we, as fans? But the bits that you see publicly, the bits that promoters have said, you know, Joe Gallagher, obviously Eddie's had crosswords with him publicly before. A few promoters have, in all fairness. So, you know, you definitely get the vibe that Joe Gallagher's not the easiest to deal with. So I'm not blaming the promotion fully. I'm not blaming Callum. I think it's just one of those situations where, you know, when it becomes like the perfect storm of everything just not quite falling into place.
Yeah.
So I think it could be that. But I just think now at 32 with Callum Smith, he's got a potentially, you know, 3 or 4 year run where he can have a serious few years and really leave a mark on the sport, or he can sort of fade out and he'll have made his money. So, I mean, if this was real and we're going to be signing him, you'd have to talk to him about his hunger and desire. Because for me, like I say, I think you'd want him for like 3 or 4 years and really like put a flag in the ground around him and create some things. I mean, again, I've done a 3-fight plan for Callum Smith and I've ignored the final eliminator with Borderlick because I just think that fight doesn't sell. So I think Matchroom, I think they bought it thinking, oh, we'll put it on the Saudi card and that can sort of help pay for it when it being over $1 million quid purse bid. But for me, I'll go Craig Richards first. He's well ranked. Callum Smith, you know, he's had 2 rounds in 2 years in the ring. I know he's trained and been fairly active in the gym, but you know, sparring's not fighting. Everybody says that, so I think he'd need some rounds. Craig Richards gives him that. You know, with it being a domestic clash as well, it obviously sells North v South. You'd bill it round that. And I'd back Callum Smith to come through that pretty handily, I think, to be totally honest with you. The second fight, I'd go Joe Smith Jr. And I'd want him sort of, you know, I'd be making Craig Richards if we could for sort of ASAP. And then if we could, possibly Joe Smith Jr. either December or even early next year. Ex-world champion, obviously he's been in with Beterbiev, so it's a good name. It sells in America as well. Try and, you know, pump the name about over there, because let's be honest, American fans are probably only know him really from the Canelo loss. And then lastly, then presumably, if they were still world champions, it'd be great if they'd already fought each other, but you go Bivol or Beterbiev, wouldn't you? That would be my 3-fight plan.
Yeah. And I think he's similar to what I was saying about Wilder, really. He's at an age where he can go for those fights and you don't have to worry about easing him into those. He's still a great talent, Callum Smith.
Yeah.
And like you rightly said, at one point he was the best super middleweight on the planet. But for whatever reason, it's not yet clicked through him in terms of getting the also finances as well, getting the recognition and the money he deserves. He needs those career. He's had one fight with Canelo, but he needs more career-defining fights. But it sounds as though your fight plan just covers that.
Mate, I think I was born to do this, to be honest with you. So, Between the Ropes promotion starts on Monday.
I can't wait to see your own shoulder roll there.
Oh, mate, I can't wait for it either. I'm going to introduce a little bit of the shoulder rolling, just to keep everybody familiar. But we'll move on. Last and final pick, and arguably this is the biggest pick because this is going to be your moneymaker, isn't it? Pay-per-view star, Ray, I'll give you first pick. Go on.
Tyson Fury. I think he talks a talk. I don't always believe what he says. He's a fascinating character. Note that I'm talking about non-boxing things first, because that's what I believe a pay-per-view star has crossover appeal. I think when he went through the phase before he fought Deontay Wilder the first time and he was out of boxing and he piled on the weight, he got involved in using alcohol and drugs to his coping mechanisms, and that really touched with members of the British public. And I think his performances against Wilder and his singing after the fight and his general character had begun to win over American fight fans. Also, because he has Irish ancestry, he is quite popular in Ireland, in some parts of Ireland. I just think, again, like Katie Taylor, you've got someone who's popular across the 3 different countries. But then, most importantly, he can fight. He's a wonderful boxer. When he gets caught on the chin, he will go down, but he will get back up. And now we've realised, or now he's started to have more confidence in his aggression on the front foot, and he punches harder than what his record suggests. I know I always say that every heavyweight has got the ability to put somebody out because of the sheer size that they are. And if they catch you cleanly, that's what will happen. But Tyson Fury, for the overall package that you get with him, plus you don't exactly know what you're going to get with him in terms of, 1 minute he's saying he'll fight for 500 million. The next minute he says he wants to fight for free. He's just very entertaining, and his family life, his dad, the whole package. For me, Tyson Fury would be my obvious choice as a pay-per-view star.
Yeah, I can't argue with anything you've said, to be fair. He's a walking genius at keeping himself in the headlines, and officially he's retired. I mean, there's the question and the belt, but yeah, allegedly he's retired at the minute. Yet you still see him in the news more than 90% of other boxers. So he's a genius at that. I do love, though, how he doesn't ever get pulled on, as you say, 1 minute it's I want half a billy, the next minute I'll fight for free. I don't know how the media never say, like, hang on a minute, which is it? But no, he's and I can't lie, he was my first pick as well. I was going for exactly the same reasons you. So I'll go to my second pick, which is Canelo. Obviously, again, 4-weight world champion, one of the biggest names in the sport. And I think after the loss to Bivol, it gives you an opportunity to also rebuild a little bit. But you've already got the name value, so it's not the toughest job in the world. But, we know what he can do. So Canelo would be my first pick. And again, I've done the 3-fight plan because I'm loving that. I wouldn't change it. I'd let him fight Golovkin. Although the criticism, and we've criticised it as well, haven't we, on this channel, around the Golovkin's age, the weight changes and all the rest of it, I just think it gives us a definitive answer. And although it will be a definitive answer with an asterisk if Canelo wins it, because people say Golovkin's age, Golovkin's no mug. We know he's not. We saw that against Murata. So he's definitely not past it. He's definitely not what he was, but he's definitely not completely over the hill. We've both said we still think he beats most middleweights. So I'd let him fight Golovkin, big money spinner, massive fight worldwide. I would then do the Bivol rematch, next Cinco de Mayo. And he's got to win that, really. Otherwise, you could have put a lot of money into him that you've, you may as well have set it on fire type thing.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So, but I'm backing him to do it. I am. I think, he's got a great coaching team. He's a special fighter. He needs to bring something special out, but if anybody can do it, I think it's fair to say Canelo possibly can. Yeah. And then the third fight, I'd go David Benavidez. To be honest, there's a few. I had a bit of back and forth with somebody on our Instagram account about Andrade, and generally, there's a few American fighters for me that are annoying me a little bit because they keep talking about everybody ducking them. Andrade, Benavidez also fits. Fight each other for me.
Yeah.
So, but Benavidez, the Mexican links, it sells, doesn't it? Let's be honest. That could be a serious money fight. And it's also, in fairness, Benavidez, good record. So that would be my 3-fight plan for it. As I say, Fury would have been my first pick, but you've had him. I'll go Canelo. Any arguments?
No, again, I can't argue with choices, Josh. I mean, for me, the Benavidez fight last, I think that's a fight that probably he probably needs to fight somebody like a Benavidez or an Andre or Charlo at some point, just simply because, although I agree that these guys need to fight each other first, I just think it's a case of just keeping these. I think Mayweather did it when he fought the likes of Victor Ortiz, and it's a similar gulf in class between Canelo and the likes of Benavidez and Charlo and Andre. They may be good when they're fighting each other, but they're just not on Canelo's level. Particularly Benavidez, I think his style's tailor-made for Canelo. He comes forward, he hasn't got the best defense in the world. He's a swarmer, he throws a lot of shots, not too much power and not too much educated aggression. Canelo just picks him off for me if he gets him on the inside. Andre's a little bit more tricky because of his footwork, but he's not. Andre doesn't step on the gas. He's not consistent with his volume of punches. And I think, although Canelo likes a breather, when Canelo's decides to go up in gears, I think that's when you'll target Andre's body, slowing down even more, and then to pick him off towards the end. The Charlo fight will probably be a bit trickier. I think that's probably the hardest fight out of the three of them for him. But again, if you can negate Charlo's terrific jab, I think he's in with a chance there of beating him on points. But having said that, I think he just needs that type of fight for the die-hard American audience. Because if we take away the top guys at light heavy, and we're not going to talk about cruiserweight because he's not ready for that, and he'll never be a cruiserweight. Those are the only names they're left for him. So he needs a win against those. So that I think again, you can't really argue with somebody who's been the face of boxing, arguably alongside who is in a heavyweight. He's been the face of boxing for the past 5 years or more. So excellent choice there, Josh.
No, brilliant. Right. Well, we're done. We'll wrap it up there. Guys, as we said, let us know in the comment section what your picks are. If you strongly disagree with any that me and Ray have picked, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It's been a little bit of a slow week this week, so apologies for that. But we have got lots of great stuff coming for you, so do stay tuned.